The silver moon of Taraxis 7 cast an ethereal glow across the research outpost that clung to the coastline like a barnacle to a ship's hull. Perched on the observation deck, Eli Mercer gazed out at the bioluminescent ocean that stretched to the horizon, its waves cresting with flashes of blue-green light. The water seemed alive tonight, more restless than usual, as if hiding secrets beneath its shimmering surface. Eli had always been drawn to the mysteries of alien seas. As one of the few human divers certified to explore the depths of Taraxis 7, he dedicated his life to cataloging its marine species, a solitary existence that suited him. His colleagues often joked that he preferred the company of strange aquatic creatures to that of his own kind. They weren't entirely wrong. Tonight, he was making final adjustments to his diving equipment, checking the oxygen recycler, calibrating his portable microscanner, and ensuring the underwater sonar was functioning properly. The station was quiet. Most researchers had retired to their quarters after another day of collecting data. But for Eli, the night shift was just beginning. The nocturnal species were different, more elusive, more fascinating. He was about to suit up when he heard it, a splash that didn't match the rhythmic pattern of the waves, followed by bubbles appearing in an unusual trajectory, not matching the behavior of any fish species he'd documented. His scientific curiosity piqued. Eli quickly finished securing his equipment. Whatever was causing that disturbance, he needed to investigate. Within minutes, he'd descended into the glowing waters. The bioluminescent plankton parted around him like living stars, illuminating his path as he followed the source of the commotion. The water was clearer at night, ironically, when the sediment settled and the natural light of the organisms provided perfect visibility. 30 feet below the surface, Eli spotted it, a creature unlike anything he'd encountered before. It resembled a wolf, with a sleek, muscular body and a canine head. But its limbs ended in webbed appendages, and patches of iridescent scales dotted its otherwise fur-covered form. Most alarmingly, the creature was entangled in what appeared to be a section of abandoned fishing net, thrashing desperately as it tried to free itself. Without hesitation, Eli approached. The creature's eyes, a startling amber that glowed in the darkness, locked onto his with an intelligence that gave him pause. But there was no time for wonder. The animal was drowning, its movements growing weaker by the second. Working quickly, Eli used his laser cutter to slice through the netting. The creature had stopped struggling, watching him with those unnerving eyes as he worked. When the last strands fell away, Eli expected it to swim off, but instead, it began to sink, apparently too exhausted to save itself. Acting on instinct, Eli grabbed the creature, surprisingly heavy, and kicked toward the surface. It didn't resist, lying limp in his arms as he breached the water and hauled it onto the deck of the observation platform. Under the moonlight, the creature looked even more extraordinary. Its fur shimmered with droplets of water, and the scales along its flanks reflected the station's lights. Eli checked for signs of life, pressing a hand against its chest. A heartbeat, strong but erratic. It was alive, but unconscious. He was reaching for his first aid kit when the creature's eyes fluttered open. Eli froze, suddenly aware of how vulnerable he was. But what happened next shattered all his scientific preconceptions. The wolf-like being looked directly at him, its amber eyes focusing with painful clarity, and spoke. "Help me," it whispered in perfect English, the words raspy but unmistakable. "Please, they're coming." Eli stumbled backward, nearly falling off the platform in shock. You can speak?" The creature attempted to rise, then collapsed with a whimper of pain. "No time. Please, hide me." Instinct warred with training. Every protocol warned against bringing unknown alien life forms into the station. But those eyes, so full of fear and intelligence, made the decision for him. Eli gently lifted the creature, noting the deep wound along its side that he hadn't seen underwater, and carried it to his private cabin. Inside, he laid the being on his bed, grabbing towels to dry it and stop the bleeding. As he worked, his mind raced with questions. What was this creature? How could it speak his language? Who was coming after it? I need to treat this wound, Eli said, pressing a clean cloth against the gash. Can you understand me? The creature nodded weakly. My name is Saris. I'm Eli. I'm a marine biologist, a scientist. I won't hurt you. Saris's eyes darted around the cabin, taking in the equipment, the charts on the walls, the microscopes and specimen containers. Scientist, she repeated, as if testing the word. Like me. This revelation stunned Eli into momentary silence. As he processed this information, he noticed something else, a strange marking on Saris's shoulder, partially hidden by fur. It appeared to be a symbol, or brand, etched into her skin. What is this? He asked, gently touching the area around the mark. Saris flinched. Sharatol, she whispered. The mark of exile. Before Eli could ask more questions, his security scanner beeped. He crossed to the monitor and felt his blood run cold. Infrared signatures were moving around the perimeter of the station, humanoid figures carrying what appeared to be weapons. They found me, Saris said, struggling to rise. The hunters, led by Commander Threxel. You must let me go or they'll kill us both. You're in no condition to run, Eli said firmly, making a decision that would forever alter his life. Hide here. I'll deal with them. He quickly covered Saris with a thermal blanket that would mask her heat signature, then grabbed his ID badge and headed for the main entrance. His heart hammered in his chest, but years of diving in dangerous waters had taught him to control his fear. Outside, 5 figures waited, bipedal beings with canine features similar to Saris, but more militaristic in bearing. They wore form-fitting armor, with insignias Eli couldn't decipher. Their leader stepped forward, towering over Eli by at least a foot. Human scientist, the leader said, his voice a low growl. I am Commander Threxel. We seek a fugitive, a dangerous criminal who has violated our most sacred laws. Our trackers indicate the traitor came this way. Eli maintained a neutral expression, grateful for the poker face he'd developed during years of academic debates. I've been monitoring marine life all evening. The only unusual activity was some debris in the water, probably from one of your ships. Threxel's eyes, cold blue, unlike Saris's warm amber, narrowed suspiciously. Our fugitive bears the mark of Sharatol. Contact with such a criminal contaminates. If you are hiding this criminal, you place yourself and your entire species at risk of diplomatic consequences. The threat was thinly veiled, but Eli stood his ground. As I said, I've seen nothing, but this is a protected research outpost under the Galactic Science Coalition Treaty. You have no jurisdiction to search these premises without proper documentation. It was a bluff. Eli had no idea if such protections would hold against these creatures. But Threxel seemed momentarily taken aback by the legal reference. We will be watching, human, Threxel finally said. The criminal cannot have gone far. Should you discover anything unusual, you are required by interspecies law to report it immediately. With that, the group retreated into the darkness, though Eli was certain they wouldn't go far. He returned to his cabin, where Saris had managed to prop herself up against the wall. Thank you, she said softly. Few would risk defying Threxel. I want to know what's going on, Eli replied, checking her wound again. The bleeding had slowed, but she needed proper medical attention. Why are they hunting you? What is this mark of Sharatol? Saris closed her eyes briefly, as if gathering strength. My people are the Volcani. We've observed your kind for centuries, keeping our distance as dictated by the Council of Elders. Was, a biogenetic researcher, studying evolutionary patterns. She paused, wincing as Eli applied antiseptic to her wound. During my research, I discovered something the Council wanted buried: evidence that Vulcani and humans share a common ancestor. Our species are not separate evolutionary branches, but deliberately separated by ancient genetic engineering. Eli's scientific mind reeled at the implications. "You're saying humans and your kind are related?" "More than related," Sarah said. "We were once one species. The Sharatul is our oldest law. It forbids acknowledging this truth. When I presented my findings, I was branded a heretic, marked with the symbol, and sentenced to death." Her eyes grew hard. "But I escaped with the evidence. Threxel was sent to silence me permanently." Eli finished bandaging her wound, his thoughts racing. If what she said was true, it would rewrite humanity's understanding of its own origins. But more immediately, they both were in grave danger. "We can't stay here," he decided. "They'll come back with reinforcements or authorization. We need to get you somewhere safe." "There is nowhere safe on Taraxis 7, Saris replied. "Threxel controls the spaceports. My only hope was to reach the coastal caves where others, bearing the mark, have found refuge." "Others like you?" Eli asked. Saris nodded. "A small group of exiles, scientists, historians, philosophers who question the Council's doctrine. We communicate through a network Threxel hasn't discovered yet." Eli moved to his computer terminal, pulling up maps of the coastline. "There's a system of underwater tunnels beneath the station. They were part of why it was built here. Easy access to multiple marine ecosystems. Some of them might lead toward these caves you mentioned." Hope flickered in Saris's eyes. "Can you show me?" As Eli brought up the detailed scans of the tunnel system, his communications device chimed. It was his colleague at the main research center, 20 miles inland. "Eli, we're picking up unusual activity around your location. Armed vessels have entered our waters without clearance. Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Eli lied smoothly. "Just some territorial dispute with local authorities. Nothing to worry about. They're requesting permission to search all research facilities. The director is stalling, but they're pretty insistent." "Something about a fugitive?" Eli glanced at Saris, who was watching him intently. "Tell the director to keep stalling. I'm in the middle of a sensitive experiment. I'll check in again in a few hours." He ended the communication and turned to Saris. "We need to move now. Can you swim in your condition?" "Not well," she admitted. "But I can try." "No need," Eli said, moving to a storage locker and retrieving a second diving suit. "This should fit you. It has its own propulsion system. You won't need to swim." As Saris donned the suit with Eli's help, he gathered essential supplies: emergency rations, medical tools, a portable communication device, and his research tablet loaded with maps of the coastal region. He also grabbed his most advanced underwater scanner and several specimen containers, maintaining the appearance of a research expedition in case they were questioned. "The main tunnel branches about a mile out," he explained, helping Saris adjust the oxygen flow on her suit. "We'll take the eastern fork. It emerges in a tidal pool system that should be deserted at this hour. From there, we can make our way along the shore to these cliffs." He pointed to the map. "If your people are in coastal caves, that's the most likely location." Saris studied the map, then nodded. "Yes, that matches the coordinates I was given." They slipped into the water through Eli's private access port, designed for late-night expeditions. The bioluminescent ocean enveloped them, providing natural camouflage against the night sky. Eli led the way, using his sonar to navigate the complex tunnel system while keeping a watchful eye on Saris, who struggled slightly with the unfamiliar equipment. The underwater passage was a marvel of natural architecture, carved by centuries of water flow through the porous rock of Taraxis 7. In different circumstances, Eli would have stopped to document the remarkable ecosystem that had developed here. The blind, translucent fish, the glowing corals, the delicate crystalline formations that seemed to sing as water passed through them. But now was not the time for scientific curiosity. They moved swiftly, Eli occasionally checking behind them for signs of pursuit. The tunnels branched and merged like capillaries, creating a labyrinth that even Eli, with all his experience, found challenging to navigate. After what seemed like hours but was likely only 40 minutes, they emerged into a sheltered cove. The silver moonlight painted the scene in monochrome: dark rocks, pale sand, shadows that could hide anything. Eli helped Saris remove her diving gear, noting that her movement had become more fluid, her strength returning. "We should be safe for a moment," he said, scanning the shoreline. "Let's rest briefly before continuing." Saris nodded, sinking onto a flat rock. "Your help. It goes beyond mere kindness. Why risk so much for someone you don't know?" Eli considered the question as he checked their surroundings. "I'm a scientist. Truth matters to me. If what you've discovered is true, it deserves to be known, not buried because it's inconvenient for those in power." Saris studied him with those penetrating amber eyes. "Among my people, such curiosity is considered dangerous. The council believes some knowledge is too destructive to pursue." "Maybe they're right sometimes," Eli admitted. "But suppressing truth through violence and fear, that's never the answer." A sound from the forest edge caught their attention. A cracking twig, a rustling leaf. Eli tensed, reaching for the laser cutter at his belt. Saris rose to her feet, her posture suddenly alert, nostrils flaring as she scented the air. "Not Threxel," she whispered. "But not friendly either. Scout drones. They track by heat signature and movement." As if on cue, a metallic object the size of a dinner plate emerged from the tree line, hovering silently, 6 feet above the ground. Its central lens rotated, scanning the beach methodically. "Don't move," Saris breathed. "The rocks still hold heat from the day. It might not distinguish us if we stay still." They froze as the drone passed nearby, its lens whirring as it processed visual data. For a moment, Eli thought they'd evaded detection. Then a sharp beep emanated from the device, and a red light began to pulse at its center. "Run!" Saris shouted, already sprinting toward the forest edge. Eli followed, abandoning most of their equipment on the beach. The drone gave chase, emitting a high-pitched wail that Eli realized was an alarm. The coastal forest of Taraxis 7 was unlike Earth's, the vegetation a strange hybrid of trees and coral-like structures, their branches reaching upward, like petrified tentacles. The ground was spongy underfoot, dotted with pools of brackish water. In daylight, it would have been beautiful. In their desperate flight, it was a nightmare of obstacles and hidden hazards. "The caves are beyond that ridge," Saris called over her shoulder, pointing to a rocky outcropping ahead. "If we can reach them before reinforcements arrive." Her words were cut short by a blinding flash of light. A second drone, larger than the first, had appeared in their path, projecting a barrier of energy that shimmered in the air, like heat waves over asphalt. They skidded to a halt, turning to find another drone blocking their retreat. They were trapped. "Eli," Saris said quietly, "if they take me, do not intervene. Find a way to escape and reach the caves. Tell them what happened. The evidence is encrypted in this." She pressed a small device into his hand, a data crystal of unfamiliar design. Before Eli could protest, the energy barriers intensified, contracting around them like a net. The air crackled with static electricity, raising the hair on Eli's arms and making Saris's fur stand on end. Then, without warning, Saris threw back her head and emitted a sound unlike anything Eli had ever heard. Not quite a howl, not quite a song, but something that seemed to vibrate at a frequency that made his very bones resonate. It echoed across the forest, bouncing off the rocky ridge ahead and reverberating through the trees. The drones faltered, their energy barriers flickering as the sound interfered with their systems. Saris grabbed Eli's arm and pulled him forward, dashing through a momentary gap in the barrier. They ran toward the ridge, the howl song still echoing around them. And then, remarkably, it was answered. From the direction of the caves came a chorus of similar calls, dozens of voices blending into a harmony that made the night air shimmer. The drones began to malfunction more severely, spinning erratically before crashing to the forest floor. "My people," Saris said, a smile transforming her face. "They heard me." They crested the ridge and found themselves on a wide, flat expanse of stone, a natural platform overlooking the ocean. Below, waves crashed against jagged rocks. Ahead, the mouth of a large cave yawned in the cliff face. But between them and that sanctuary stood Threxel and a squad of armed hunters. "Impressive," Threxel said, his cold blue eyes fixed on Saris. "Using the resonance call to disable our technology. But did you think we wouldn't anticipate that? That we wouldn't be prepared?" Saris pushed Eli behind her, facing Threxel with defiance. "The truth can't be silenced forever, Commander. No matter how many you exile, how many you kill." Threxel's muzzle curved in what might have been a smile. "Truth? You speak of truth while consorting with humans?" He gestured toward Eli with contempt. "They are the very reason for the Sharatul. Their chaotic nature, their violence, their lack of discipline, these are the traits we purged from our bloodline eons ago." "Lies," Saris spat. "The separation was never about improvement. It was about control, about creating a hierarchy within a single species and maintaining it through deception." Threxel took a step forward, his hand moving to the weapon at his side. "Your research was flawed, your conclusions tainted by your sympathy for lesser beings. The Council reviewed your findings and found them without merit." "The Council saw exactly what I discovered," Saris countered, "and it terrified them. Because if humans and Vulcani are one species, artificially divided, then the entire foundation of our society crumbles." The standoff might have continued indefinitely, but a new sound interrupted. The synchronized footfalls of many individuals approaching from the cave. Eli turned to see a group emerging from the darkness. At least 30 Vulcani, similar to Saris in appearance but with variations in fur color and markings. Each bore the same symbol Saris carried, the mark of Sharatul, glowing faintly against their skin like a bioluminescent tattoo. The exiles moved with purpose, forming a semicircle behind Eli and Saris, facing Threxel's squad. Despite being unarmed, they showed no fear. One of them, an older female with silver-streaked fur, stepped forward. "Enough blood has been spilled in the name of Sharatul, Threxel. We offer you a choice. Leave now and report that the fugitive escaped, or stay and face judgment from those you've persecuted." Threxel's squad shifted uneasily, clearly outnumbered, but the commander himself remained impassive. "You threaten a representative of the Council? That alone is punishable by death." "We're already condemned," the silver-furred female replied calmly. "What further punishment can you inflict?" As tension mounted, Saris suddenly gasped, clutching at the mark on her shoulder. It had begun to glow more intensely, pulsing with a light that seemed to come from within her body. The other exiles' marks responded in kind, creating a network of synchronized light that connected them all. "The resonance," whispered the silver-furred female. "It's never happened with so many present." Threxel took an involuntary step backward, his composure finally cracking. "Silence her!" he barked at his squad, "before the resonance fully activates." But his soldiers hesitated, transfixed by the phenomenon unfolding before them. The light from the marks grew brighter, casting long shadows across the stone platform. Saris stood at the center of it all, her eyes closed in concentration or pain. Eli couldn't tell which. When she opened her eyes again, they glowed with the same light as the mark. And when she spoke, her voice carried a new authority. "Commander Threxel," she said, the words echoing unnaturally. "You have hunted us, killed us, exiled us in the name of a law based on lies. But the truth cannot be erased from our very DNA." She stretched out her hand, and the light from her mark projected outward, forming a holographic display that hovered in the air between them. It showed a double helix structure that Eli recognized as DNA, though with configurations he'd never seen before. "This is Vulcani DNA," Saris continued, the projection shifting. "And this," another structure appeared alongside it, "is human DNA. The differences are not evolutionary. They are engineered, deliberate modifications made by our ancestors to create two paths from one origin." The projections merged, showing how the structures aligned with only specific sections altered or removed. Even to Eli's trained eye, the similarity was undeniable. 3,000 years ago, Sarah said, a faction of our common ancestors decided to purify themselves, to remove what they considered inferior traits and create a superior version of our species. They succeeded in altering their genetics and established the First Council, which decreed that all knowledge of our common origin be erased. The Sharatul, the Great Separation, became their founding principle. Threxel's hand tightened on his weapon. "These are the ravings of a heretic. The Council will never accept." "The Council already knows," interrupted the silver-furred female. "They've always known. Every elder undergoes the ritual of ancestry upon taking office. They see the original records, the true history. They perpetuate the lie because it maintains their power." Murmurs arose from Threxel's squad, sounds of confusion and disbelief. One of them lowered his weapon entirely. "Commander," he said hesitantly, "is this true? Has the Council lied to us all?" Threxel's expression contorted with rage. "Traitors! All of you!" In a swift motion, he raised his weapon and fired, not at Saris or the exiles, but at Eli. Time seemed to slow. Eli saw the energy bolt speeding toward him, knew he couldn't dodge in time. Then, Saris was there, moving with impossible speed, her body interposing itself between Eli and certain death. The bolt struck her squarely in the chest, and she collapsed into Eli's arms. The platform erupted into chaos. The exiles surged forward, overwhelming Threxel's squad through sheer numbers. The soldiers, already shaken by the revelations and their commander's actions, offered little resistance. Threxel himself fought viciously, but was subdued by 4 exiles, who pinned him to the ground. Eli cradled Saris, frantically checking for signs of life. Her fur was singed where the bolt had struck, but remarkably, the skin beneath appeared unburned. The mark of Sharatul glowed more intensely than ever, spreading its light across her body like a protective shield. Her eyes fluttered open, meeting his with a mixture of pain and wonder. "The resonance protected me," she whispered. "It's never been this strong before." Relief flooded through Eli. "Don't ever do that again," he said, his voice rough with emotion. Saris managed a weak smile. "You saved my life. I was merely returning the favor." The silver-furred female approached, kneeling beside them. "The resonance chose well," she said cryptically. "Bring her into the cave. Our healers will attend to her." As Eli carried Saris toward the cave entrance, he glanced back at Threxel, now bound and guarded by several exiles. "What will happen to him?" he asked the silver-furred female, who walked alongside them. "Justice," she replied simply. "Not revenge, though many would desire it. He will face the truth he tried to destroy, and his testimony will help us expose the Council's deception." Inside the cave, Eli discovered an entire community, hidden from the world. The cavern opened into a vast chamber, illuminated by the same bioluminescent organisms that lit the ocean. Dwellings had been carved into the walls, connected by stone bridges and stairways. Volcani of all ages moved about the space, some bearing the mark of Sharatul, others unmarked, but apparently allied with the exiles. Saris was taken to a healing chamber, where several Volcani, with specialized knowledge, worked to treat her injury. The energy weapon had caused internal damage that would require time to heal. But the prognosis was positive. The resonance, they explained, had partially absorbed the blast, preventing what would have been a fatal wound. While Saris recovered, Eli was given a place to rest and an opportunity to learn more about this hidden society. The silver-furred female, who introduced herself as Lyra, served as his guide and translator of cultural nuances. "We've been watching your species for centuries," she told him, as they shared a meal of unfamiliar but delicious food. "Some of us have even lived among humans, disguised, gathering information." "Why?" Eli asked. "If contact was forbidden by the Sharatul?" "Because some of us never accepted the separation as final," Lyra explained. "We believed that someday our peoples would reunite, that the artificial division would heal." Eli considered this as he ate. "But, from what Saris showed us, the genetic modifications are extensive. Can they be reversed?" Lyra's expression grew somber. "That is the question that has occupied our best minds for generations. Saris believes it's possible, not to erase the differences, but to heal the damage done by the forced separation, to acknowledge our common heritage while celebrating our unique evolutionary paths." Days passed as Eli integrated into the exile community, learning their customs and sharing his knowledge of human society. He was fascinated by their technology, an elegant blend of biological and mechanical engineering that far surpassed humanity's achievements. In return, he offered insights into human art, music, and philosophy that the Volcani found equally compelling. Throughout this cultural exchange, his thoughts often turned to Saris. He visited her daily as she recovered, their conversations growing deeper and more personal. She told him of her childhood on the Volcani homeworld, of her decision to become a scientist despite her family's political connections, of the moment she first discovered the genetic truth that would change everything. A week after their arrival at the cave sanctuary, a messenger brought unexpected news. The Council of Elders had sent an envoy requesting a meeting with the exiles, not to capture or punish them, but to negotiate. Threxel's capture has caused ripples throughout Volcani society, Lyra explained during an emergency gathering. His testimony, combined with the evidence Saris collected, has forced the Council to acknowledge at least the possibility that the Sharatul is based on deception. Saris, now able to walk with assistance, joined the meeting. The mark on her shoulder had changed, the angry red lines softening to a shimmering blue that pulsed in harmony with her heartbeat. "The resonance has never manifested so powerfully," she said, addressing the assembled exiles. "I believe it's because of Eli's presence. The connection between human and Volcani DNA created a catalyst that strengthened the effect." All eyes turned to Eli, who shifted uncomfortably under the scrutiny. "I just did what anyone would do," he said. "I saw someone in trouble and helped." "And in doing so," Saris replied, "you may have helped bridge a division thousands of years in the making." The council decided to meet with the envoy, but took precautions against treachery. The meeting would take place on neutral ground, a sacred site where, according to ancient tradition, violence was forbidden. Eli was invited to attend, a historic first for a human. As they prepared for the journey, Saris approached him privately. "You could return to your research station now," she said quietly. "Your involvement has already risked more than any of us had the right to ask. What comes next may have consequences for your entire species." Eli considered her words carefully. His colleagues must be worried about his extended absence. His research was falling behind. And yes, the implications of this revelation could be staggering for humanity. "I started this journey with you," he finally said. "I want to see it through. Besides, if humans and Volcani are going to have this conversation eventually, Someone needs to start it. Might as well be me. Cyrus's expression softened, and she took his hand in her paw-like one. Thank you for everything. The meeting with the council's envoy took place at dawn on a windswept plateau overlooking the ocean. The envoy, an elderly Vulcani with pure white fur and ceremonial robes, arrived alone as promised. Ceres, Lyra, and Eli represented the exiles, while several guards remained at a respectful distance. The council has reviewed the evidence presented by the one called Ceres. The envoy began formally. While we do not accept all her conclusions, we acknowledge that certain historical records may have been selectively preserved. Ceres stepped forward, her posture dignified despite her still healing injury. Selectively preserved? You mean systematically erased to maintain a lie? The envoy's expression remained impassive. The founders of the Sharatul believed they were protecting our species from a chaotic and violent past. Whether their methods were justified is a complex question. Not to those who were exiled or killed for speaking the truth, Lyra interjected sharply. The envoy inclined his head slightly, acknowledging the point. Which is why I am here. The council proposes a temporary suspension of the Sharatul doctrine, while a full investigation is conducted. Those bearing the mark will no longer be persecuted, and communication with humans will be permitted under controlled circumstances. Eli listened to the diplomatic exchange with growing amazement. The implications were enormous, not just for the Vulcani, but potentially for all of humanity. If what Ceres had discovered was true, it would rewrite human evolutionary history, challenge fundamental assumptions about human uniqueness, and open possibilities for collaboration between species that shared a common ancestry. But he also recognized the dangers. Humanity's track record with differences, even among its own kind, was far from perfect. How would Earth's nations react to the revelation that humans were one branch of a deliberately divided species? The negotiations continued through the day, establishing protocols for sharing information, protecting vulnerable populations on both sides, and gradually building trust between long-separated cousins. By sunset, a preliminary agreement had been reached, a fragile first step toward reconciliation. As the envoy departed, promising to return with the council's formal response, Ceres turned to Eli. This is just the beginning. There will be resistance, denial, perhaps even violence from both sides. But today, we've created a possibility that didn't exist before. Eli nodded, gazing out over the darkening ocean where silver moonlight now danced on the waves. It started with you nearly drowning, and me breaking every protocol to save you. Sometimes, the biggest changes begin with the smallest choices. Later that night, Eli stood alone on a rocky outcropping, watching the bioluminescent tide create patterns of light along the shore. Behind him, the cave sanctuary hummed with activity as the exiles prepared for a new chapter in their history. Tomorrow, he would need to return to the research station to explain his absence and begin the delicate process of introducing this discovery to his superiors. But tonight, he simply listened to the sounds of Taraxis 7, the whisper of alien waves, the calls of nocturnal creatures, and, faintly from the distance, the harmonic howl of Vulcani voices raised in their ancient song of connection. A soft footfall announced Ceres's arrival. She joined him silently, her presence comforting in its familiarity despite the short time they'd known each other. "Will they believe you?" she asked after a while. "Your people?" Eli smiled ruefully. "Some will, some won't. That's the human way. But the evidence will speak for itself, eventually." Ceres's mark glowed gently in the darkness, its light now a calming blue rather than the angry red of exile. "The mark is changing for all of us," she said, noticing his gaze. "From a symbol of shame to one of hope." "What does Sharatul actually mean?" Eli asked suddenly. "In your language?" "Ironically, It translates roughly to the Great Division, Saris replied. But division can also mean specialization or diversification. Perhaps our ancestors weren't entirely wrong. We did become different species in many ways. Their mistake was turning difference into hierarchy, separation into alienation. Eli considered this. On Earth, we have a concept called biodiversity, the idea that an ecosystem is strongest when it contains many different species, each contributing in unique ways. Maybe that's how we should view our relationship. Saris smiled, the expression transforming her wolfish features. I'd like that. Different branches of the same tree, reaching toward the same light. A chorus of howls rose from the cave, calling them back. But for a moment longer, they remained where they were, human and Vulcani, watching the silver moon cast its light over an ocean that connected rather than divided their worlds. In the distance, a ship passed on the horizon, perhaps human, perhaps Vulcani, or maybe something else entirely. The universe was vast, full of possibilities and connections yet to be discovered, and it had all begun with a simple choice to save a drowning stranger, regardless of species, regardless of difference. As they turned to rejoin the others, Eli knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever resistance they might face from both their peoples, something profound had changed. A truth, long buried, had resurfaced, like a creature too long held underwater, finally breaking free to breathe. And like the mark on Saris's shoulder, that truth was transforming from a wound into a beacon, painful in its revelation, but ultimately healing in its light.